Introducing the African Diaspora News Channel app, your gateway to stories that's overlooked by the corporate mainstream media.
And we serve as the voice to the Truval Black community.
Again, we got Dr. Candace Matthews.
A lot of these documents, looking at.
We are committed to informing and educating through the power of media.
This country is supposed to be about the land of the free for all. It has not been free for Black people, and we are tired.
With our platform, we're helping to end injustice by exposing it.
Join us in standing for excellence in journalism and serving our community. Download the African Diaspora News app today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great interview today, and the reason why I say it's great is because we are at a special building here in South Africa, the building where a lot of things go on, and they're considered the International State Department, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I'm here with Chief Minister Luvuyo Ndimeni.
Chief Director.
Chief Director.
Yes.
Chief Director. Chief Director. And this brother does a lot of special things here, not only with the African Union, but also he is the permanent director for South Africa,
yes.
For the African Union?
Yes. Well, I'm the Chief Director, African Union, within the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, which is basically in the U.S., you'll call it the State Department.
State Department,
yes.
Correct. I know exactly what that is.
Yes.
All right, so in that role, what are you actually doing? So just for people in America who would not know, what are you doing fully in that role for the African Union and for South Africa in particular?
I mean, basically, we represent South Africa's interests in the African Union. I mean, foreign policy, if I was to put it in broader terms. But we cover the African Union from Pretoria. We go to the heads of state meetings and the ministerial meetings. But in terms of responsibility, there's the main three areas is issues of peace and security in the rest of the continent. Again, there's what we call the partnerships. And then the third area, which is critical also for us, is the entire African Union as an organization, the machinery, the secretariat, which we call the commission, and also all the programs and the funding of the African Union, as well as what is not known by a lot of people, the African Union agencies all over the continent. In South Africa, we are hosting, for instance, the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, New Partnership for Africa's Development. We are also hosting the Pan-African Parliament. We are also hosting the African Peer Review Mechanism, which evaluates and looks at programs of each country in election monitoring and all of that. So that's just the one aspect that a lot of people don't know about. So in a nutshell, it's that kind of responsibility. But the entire African Union is basically my responsibility, of course, with the colleagues that I'm working with.
Well, you have elections coming up, at least in this country, with about a month or so, correct?
Sure.
No, so does the African Union mission elections? Does the African Union help, oversee elections, or just make sure everything is open and fair? Is that part of the scope of what you're doing?
Yes. We've got what is called the African Union Election Observer Mission. Mm-hmm. We've also got the SADC, the Southern Africa Development Corporation Election Observer Mission. Of course, then we will have others from other regional organizations outside of the continent, but more specifically is driven from the continent, and we bring them in just for the validity and of the integrity of the actual elections, so that they are not questionable. So that's what we are also responsible. But we basically facilitate and coordinate the visits of the different observer missions, but we do not get involved for objectivity purposes.
Okay, and last time I was, ladies and gentlemen, seen the minister. I met him at the meet and greet that we had here in South Africa. And Minister, you was mentioning at that time period about the sixth region. Now, some people may not know what the sixth region is. I kind of know, but explain to people what the sixth region is for the African Union.
Okay. I like the title of minister, but it's a higher political level. For me, it's chief director.
Chief director.
Yes.
Chief director. Okay, chief director. We'll go with that. Chief director.
Yes. And no, the reason it's also important to make just a distinction in terms of hierarchy in our administration. At the level of chief director, we are basically, inducing the implementation of policies coming from our political leadership. But the one point is something that we are quite passionate about, and it has a bit of history here, Phil, if you don't mind my explaining. In 2001, we hosted the World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance. And that conference was an eye-opener for me at many levels. I mean, in the context of South Africa, we do know that they are Afro-descendants, But the extent to which the history has come out in many respects has been, I can say, very distorted. And so when we hosted that conference, this is when we looked, amongst other issues, what is called the victims of racism. Victims of racism. We also looked at, again, the causes of racism, racial discrimination. We also looked at sources. That's where the issues of slave trade, slavery, colonialism, and apartheid, came out. But that being said, the African Union itself made a fundamental decision. I think this was early after the the OAU transformed into the AAU, which is African Union. That there was a definite decision by heads of state to define the diaspora as the sixth region, and this is a point that we are quite passionate about with my colleagues I'm working with. We are pushing this issue quite sharply because the sixth region and the connection between the sixth region and the African Union is a part that for us needs to really be looked at and revamped. And so that is a connection with the sixth region. And this is the issue that we are currently pursuing. But I just want to make at least just three specific points in relation to that. The one issue that is a priority for us is what I said to you when we had the meet and greet, the whole issue of what we call African excellence. There is a lot that we can say and do with the diaspora in this area, in the area of African excellence, sports issues, culture issues, the academia, there's quite a lot that we think we need to do. And then the second issue again is the issue of spiritual healing, the spirituality. The whole notion of, Afro-descendants being, shaped to a continent or places that they've never known before, the forefathers, that it speaks to a generational issue where the impact of that has been researched by many universities in the US. That's the one thing that was an eye-opener for me. And again, the last issue again is a people-to-people, engagement. And when I say people-to-people engagement, I'm not saying it lightly. There is a very strong need, for Afro-descendants to know that when they come to the continent, it should not be anything else, than to connect, to know that this is also home. It's a bigger political agenda, but we can contribute, in the little ways that we can through, yourselves. And again, to come to South Africa and to see the two economies that we have, is also an eye-opener because we can see the legacy of apartheid there right here in our backyard. Yeah. So that is the project that we are busy with, at least from the unit that I'm heading as chief director.
All right, Chief Director, and I'm going to say this because some people in America will say this, especially, let me say more so Black America.
Sure.
You mentioned coming home, correct?
Yes.
Well, some people say, well, how can I come home, but I can't stay because I'm literally treated on the same level as white people? In other words, I don't have a key to stay home.
Yeah.
I don't have a residency. I don't have a citizenship. Like, why can't they give us, at least residency or citizenship so we can stay home? That we don't have to be over there bring our talent, bring our, businesses, like you say, sports, or people just want to come live and just have a great life outside of those other countries that, like you said, we dealt with slavery, colonization, still fighting issues. What do you say to that?
Yeah. Again, as I say, the issue of the diaspora, regrettably, has has not found traction even within the African Union, in the sense that we would have liked to see a policy engagement that clearly clarifies, if you are going to come to the continent, this is a uniform approach that needs to be taken within the continent. So part of what we are busy doing now is there's a preparatory process which we hosted here in South Africa on the 4th and the 5th of December last year. In that preparatory process, at least South Africa, Namibia, and again Zimbabwe, that were involved, the southern region in the continent. We specifically wanted, in fact, in Angola, if I forget, in Angola, we specifically drew the attention of that conference that as we prepare for what is going to be the 9th Pan-African Congress that is going to be held in Lome in Togo in October, we want to insist that the issue of the diasporas and the challenges that are in creating challenges for the diaspora need to be part of the outcomes as we go to that process. But central to your question, I think, is the issue of the visas, amongst other issues, and permanent residence. So we want to have a uniform approach, throughout the continent. That's what we are pushing for, at least from South Africa. But having said that, there is now the introduction of eVisas, which we think will simplify issues. We're looking closely, and with our colleagues in South Africa, we call it the Department of Home Affairs. We're looking at eVisas as one mechanism to bridge, especially, for instance, there's a provision now that is closely looked at of what is called remote workers. You have American families that are still in South Africa that are commuting back and forth, which is feasible, time difference being the advantage. So we are looking at that, and we are pushing for that, at least from a foreign policy perspective. But it's also an advantage to us because most of at least the Americans that I've seen coming to South Africa, at least Black Americans, they're bringing vast skills which we need. So there's dispensations that are targeted at those. I would not want to go as to confirm at this stage until that is finalized, but this is a project that we are working on with the teams that I'm with.
So, Chief Director, you say you're having some issues with maybe doing something uniform. Is there anybody like pushing against that to say, you know what? Maybe, I'm not saying South Africa is doing it, but maybe you just kind of heard chatterings, maybe in certain nations that may be apprehensive to doing that. With bringing in the diaspora like that. Do you hear any chatterings? Because I want to make sure I dispel things, because people say things in America could be misinformation, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so some people may say, well, they really don't want us back home because look, they do this, they do that. So to clear the air, that's what I'm here to do. Is do you hear anybody speaking against what you're saying?
No, I've not heard any views to that extent. But the most important thing is also to remember that the African continent, or the African Union, is constituted of 53 member states on its own. Different variations of development, different policies. And that being the case, what becomes critical, if you have a conference of the nature that is going to be held in Lome, in Togo, you have an outcome document that speaks to all of us to say, if we are going to be serious about what we are doing in terms of what we call now Agenda 2063, I really would encourage that you look at Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 has got what is called aspirations. There are things we're aspiring to do as the African continent. Now, in those aspirations, one central issue there is the whole notion of Pan-Africanism. And Pan-Africanism, in its broadest sense, is what brings us together through Agenda 2063. Now, what in the conference will be happening, and in fact we very much suspect is going to happen, is there will be a strong commitment to Pan-Africanism, but in that commitment, we need to come up with practical ways on how to make that real. So it's work in progress, but the fact of the matter is that the diaspora or the sixth region needs to be activated very strongly. Also, because the realities are that we are so dependent on each other as developing countries, and also the diaspora is for us a critical component of that. We're seeing so many wonderful things, coming from the diaspora in the US itself. Black Americans doing a lot of things that are replicated in the continent. So the whole point is we are really looking forward to the Togo conference, reaffirming that this needs to be something we take forward concretely, so that whoever is looking at the continent and the AU itself must not doubt where we stand. There are no anti-diaspora sentiments at all. That I can confirm. Hence, we are even requesting the conference.
Okay, so Chief Director, I just want to say in itself, you being gracious to sit down with me and invite us here to what we were equivalent, like you said, to the State Department in the U.S. I mean, just being realistic with you, I don't get invites like that even in the United States. I don't. Even just being on TV here in South Africa, that don't really happen too much. I mean, they gatekeep a lot of that. So I always tell people that I'm treated way better in South Africa on the continent than I've ever been even in the United States. Mm-hmm. So I know that there are more opportunity for us in the diaspora to not only come here and not only live, but contribute to society. Sure. Some of us got businesses that we would love to bring and hire locals and help with, some of the issues. So we just, I just want to make sure that they heard that from you, because I can say it all day.
Sure.
But when they hear from somebody like you that has a position, sure. Now this in October, when is it supposed to be? The Pan-African Congress? It's a
9th Pan-African Congress. Mm-hmm. The dates, I think it's the 29th of October. Yes, but it's going to be staggered. Yes, then it's going to be 29th of October to the 3rd of November. Those are the dates. It's going to be in Togo and Lome. Yes, but just coming back to the point I was actually making earlier, part of why we are involved as the Foreign Ministry or State Department is also that I used to live in New York, incidentally. So one has a certain affinity, especially when one sees, what is happening in the US and also in South Africa. So for us, this issue of the people-to-people contact is critical. More often than not, when you come to South Africa, we are putting ourselves now as the foreign ministry in a position where we say, if you come, you must know these are the areas of contacts. These are the areas that we need to touch on. One of the projects that we're busy with now is what we call a Diaspora Week as part of our project. Yes, we're going to host a Diaspora Week. We're just waiting for the elections to go on, and I really think if you have time to come and cover that, we want to create space where some of the issues that you are raising, we want to bring a lot more focus on issues of the diaspora. We still have to work on the program, but we're also looking at working with the Jamaicans, the Jamaican government and the embassy here. Again, the Colombians who are represented here through their embassy. But the point is that it's more to expose, Afro-descendants to South Africans. It's very critical that we make sure that as part of as we go on with this project, we also bring the local population along. Right. Meaning, when they see you, people they just love to hear an African American in South Africa. Just the accent, I mean, this also an issue that we can go into later, but it comes from the influence and the impact of television. Wesley Snipes, all the big guns from Hollywood. When they see them here, they look at them, as the icons for us. And again, your TV personalities in the US, your Oprah Winfrey's. So in the apartheid days, when we saw those figures on TV, and also recently, we tend to look up to, oh wow, so black people can do that, so we can also do that. And then you come to the music industry, it's the same story, but the whole point is that's just now television and its impact. But in terms of people to people engagement, we still want to say that we still need to work on that. You know, just your coming here, and what Mark Blanton and his wife Tasha have done, it actually has done a lot. They've been able to integrate. So the issue of integration is not a phenomenon that you can just take over and think it will be resolved within a certain space of time. So whilst we do this, we need to also work on, you know, a campaign, you know, where we are bringing you out to your typical men and women in Soweto to know that, oh, okay, yeah, Phil is doing this covering, you know, the township economy, and as a consequence of that, there's a lot of awareness that comes in, and the issue of rejection. This is also something that we also need to look at it from a perspective that ignorance contributes to that a lot. Yes, so hence I was introducing you to the people like Brenda Sisane, who is a big personality in South Africa. I think the next time you come, we certainly will arrange for you to meet, you know, for instance, there's GCIS, the Government Communication Information Services, which for us is critically spread information. And I think it will also be useful to have a program where you now meet, I mean, the typical thing in South Africa, again, without being long, is visiting the traditional leadership, the chiefs, you know. I think it would be very useful for you to just meet, just forget about the urban areas, just take you to the chiefs in South Africa, where, I mean, in KwaZulu-Natal, you would have, each other at the time is short, I would have arranged for you to meet, you know, just chiefs in KwaZulu-Natal, where people would have a different understanding. My own great-great-grandfather, I understand, was shipped as a slave, and they apparently finally landed up in Chicago, somewhere in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Actually,
So you have descendants that was in the slavery.
Yes, you know. So, but in any case, just to give you a sense that those are some of the methods of integrating into society. So I think if you are able to spend more time, those are some of the issues that you can really hear from the men in the street as to how they perceive Afro descendants. Yeah.
Well, I will say that from just my experience, you know, it's always been nothing but love, nothing but respect. It's never been nothing bad or nothing like that. And I always tell people that. I said, listen, you need to go. And you mentioned, you know, Mark and Latasha, you know, shout out to them, Real South Africa. But if they wasn't doing a good thing, or even not, you know, so we brought about 45 people, and they constantly bring people into the country. So they've been very instrumental in, you know, helping shape some ideas. And when people see them, they say, oh, I want to go to South Africa. But yeah, it's very, very important, you know, for the diaspora, like I said, not only to hear what you're saying, like you said, because of misinformation, maybe some ignorance there, because sometimes we don't really get to hear from people like you talk about it. It's people that live over there talking, and they're not even here, you know, having a conversation.
I think most importantly, one thing we must never overlook: when you come to South Africa, you blend very easily. If you're an African American, you blend very easily, and it's not as if it's because you are coming into an environment which you are not familiar with. But an ordinary South African, if they see you, I'm telling you, they will not even make any distinction, because they just see another black brother, another black sister. That's a first point of departure. And what you are seeing as love, to us as South African, is also what we call Ubuntu. You know, Ubuntu is the notion that I am what I am because of you and who you are. And that is why I say, if I was to take you to a typical rural area and you see the local chiefs, I can tell you the biggest challenge that you'll have when you go back is gifts, because people are going to say, hey, I feel we are going to present you with a cow or a sheep, and it's more symbolic from our culture to do that, because we are embracing you. But then I don't know what would you do with the cow and the sheep when you have to get
I can't do it with us. Maybe I can donate it back to the village.
Yes, but the whole point is the notion of acceptance. What that does symbolically is acceptance. But over and above that, it's also a system of educating each other as well, because over time culture evolves. You know, just again to take the same notion of the sheep. If I was going to give you that sheep, you can't give it back. You've got to take it with you.
Oh,
You've got to take it with you. As to what you do with it in the hotel or else, that's another story. You see, because if you give it back, it can be taken
rude.
as rude and rejection.
Oh,
Yes, so you've got
okay.
to take it with you. We can sit in the hotel and agree, okay, let's slaughter this, and then okay, you know, whatever we arrange. But the point is, at the point of contact, you've got to show respect.
Oh,
You know, so what Mark actually has done, and Tasha, has been the reason I actually got in touch with them and contacted them, and I saw that channel. I said, listen, you understand where the sensitivities in society are, because there's different levels of development anyway. So that's the notion again of integration, which I want the reason I'm going to this explanation is that integration is not a one-way phenomenon. There's a cultural side, there's an economic side. Some people may be welcoming you because you are coming with dollars, but some people are coming with different things. But that's why for me, and again the team I'm working with, I am saying it becomes critical if the entry point is on African excellence and again is on spirituality, because we are finding each other there very easy, and then people to people, you know, engagement. So those are just some of my of the issues that I wanted to just share with you, and really your covering and coming to here is a major contribution. For you it might appear like it's a small issue. The continent has challenges, poverty. We've seen during COVID, the continent, we actually in the continent were able to manage it far better compared to the resources that we have. And by saying that, it's also very important to understand that the technology that is in the US and also in the rest of the world is not the kind of technology that we have this side, but we still managed
yes, sir.
to effectively, you know, get out of COVID with relatively a less number of deaths. That says a lot about the continent. But again, if you look at the US, you look at the standard, the level of education, those are the kind of things that would really benefit even us in the continent through that engagement. And also vice versa, by the way. There's a lot that is coming from the continent that can also be fed back to the rest of the diaspora.
Well, I want to point out two things. You mentioned culture and you mentioned integration. But I believe that when you come to new places, you got to kind of assimilate a little bit more so to integrate. Well, integration is good. So just my suggestion, and you can write it down somewhere. If you guys develop something where maybe, you know, diaspora can't get some sort of, at least, you know, I always said you start off with a residency, then with time you can get a citizenship. That's just my suggestion. But maybe like a civics class, where with the civics class, like part of the program will teach you about the culture.
Sure.
You know, so you say, hey, this is part of this culture. You know, because you don't want to offend different cultures, and because that's sometimes what can happen. 'Cause, you know, we grew up in the West, and you know we have like a Western culture. Even though we black, we still have a Western culture.
Yeah.
Versus here, it's totally a different culture.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there's a lot of people. Let's say, like I was hearing the other day about teachers. Teachers are needed. There's a lot of Black American teachers that really don't want to be in the public schools anymore, because it just, the American school system is just, I don't even want to go there. But maybe they can come to South Africa and they would love it if they had a like maybe program or something where they say, you know what, hey, I can come be a teacher in South Africa. But not only that, I'm not renewing a visa. I'm here now. I'm home. I'm a teacher. And that, trust me, there's so many Black American teachers or nurses or doctors or whatever profession, business owners would love to come back. That only thing they keep telling me repeatedly is, Phil, all they got to do is just give us the opportunity and we'll go.
Yeah. Well, we can have a long discussion around this.
Oh, yeah.
But the one thing I wanted to highlight to you, in the UN, this was 2008, 2009, there is a General Assembly resolution here that speaks to what is called the Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela International Day. That resolution basically is based on the values and the principles of Nelson Mandela, his spirit of volunteerism, his spirit of reconciliation, again, his spirit of Ubuntu, centrally. But the essence of what I'm saying is that there are a lot of opportunities to engage on developing such programs, notwithstanding any challenges. And it's outside of government, by the way. And those opportunities are opportunities that provide space and scope to undertake exactly what you are saying. I know, I'm part of the my philanthropic side is my engagement with the Institute for Foreign Policy, Institute for Global Health and Diplomacy. What was being looked at there by a small group of people is how to bring volunteers into the spaces which we are talking about. And most of the time, what we've seen is people want to focus on just diplomacy in the sense of engaging, not just engaging, but also promoting an understanding of different cultures. I used to live in the DRC in Congo, where you have such desperate levels of underdevelopment and poverty, but where we were able to make an intervention, in some of these areas now in my official capacity, we were able to use this Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela project as a project where people would volunteer. And to our best surprise, you had South African businesses that came on board in Kinshasa. You had Congolese businesses that came on board, and then they would decide, we are going to embark on this project. And we intervened, for instance, in an orphanage, Matumaini, just outside of Kinshasa. And one of the things that we were able to do at the time was to basically revamp the entire environment and then seed some of the offerings that were coming, from the different businesses. So it's a matter of sometimes just matching the resources. And in this particular case, the teachers would like to come, but then you see the advantage again that we have in the US is that when it is summer there, here it is winter, but at the same time the schools are still open in South Africa. You see, so those are some of the practical things that I've got experience on, which I've seen work. In the Eastern Cape, there are some schools, there are communities that are ready to, receive, such volunteers. It's just now the issue is what we want to do. It has to be anchored institutionally. When I say institutionally, just to make sure that whoever comes knows the kind of environment that is going in. So allowing a week in between just for orientation is something that is, it makes sense before you go into the communities. Yeah, then I can speak for one or two companies here that we've approached as well that are involved with the diaspora issue, and so we're embarking on that exercise in support now and preparation for this meeting in Lome, but we're also looking long term.
Yes, sir. Well, Chief Director, I definitely thank you for your time today. We greatly appreciate you giving some answers that maybe people didn't have.
Yeah.
Because like I say, when people, put out different things, it's great to hear directly from someone in your position. So, Chief Director, you definitely have a great day. We greatly appreciate you, and stay blessed.
Yeah. No, thanks, Phil. I really would like to just encourage, to the brothers and sisters out there, that we may not necessarily have all the answers. I don't want to come here and pretend as if we've got a magic wand. But the fact of the matter is, to the extent that it is possible, if there is a challenge, it's a challenge that needs to be resolved. But the diaspora, I can say comfortably, the continent is a continent that really needs support. It needs a lot of rethinking, because the shape of geopolitics right now, they need us to think out of the box. If you look at the trends politically, the trends that are global, they tend to exclude Afro descendants. Afro descendants become secondary to the issues, And if we are going to continue this way, it's not sustainable. So the path that we're embarking on, at least from where I'm able to influence, is a path that says African excellence is what will make us survive. And if we can connect spiritually, which is what we know, I'm sure even the great-grandfathers, when they were shipped out as slaves, if there's one thing you could not kill, was their spirits. And those spirits, they still remain even up to today. Through you, through me, we sit here as black brothers, and nobody can say you and I'm not American or you are not South African. You know, so I just want to say that connection is very critical. But if somebody, from a neighborhood in Atlanta is able to hook up with somebody here in Mamelodi, I think these are some of the connections that we need to establish. And I really thank you really for reaching out and coming to South Africa. And next time you come, I think we can set up a program that is much more tangible. But the most critical part, beyond what you've seen in Soweto and in Sentin, is to just go out, and we'll arrange for you to meet your chiefs and the kings in KwaZulu-Natal, so that you have a sense of what really the kind of people we cherish and you love. You'll get a feel of what love is about. The people will step out, they will even dance and sing and do. It's not because they don't have anything to do, it's just to show you that we have nothing to give you, but we can share with you our dance, our love through dancing, which unfortunately in the Western media tends to be construed as if, oh, look at them now, they are all over the show, they are just clapping and dancing. What's up with them? It's not because of that. It's because they are just appreciating your worth. They are saying, we'll step aside and we'll sing for you, we'll dance for you, and that can be arranged when you come. You will see it, and it's not artificial or pre-recorded or anything. It's just something people just do spontaneously. So that's the love you can expect from South Africa and the rest of the continent, by the way. You go to Ghana, you go to Kenya, you'll find the same pattern. But thank you very much, Phil. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, we definitely gotta make sure to arrange that. I have not really been to any village yet, but we'll make sure you arrange that for the next time. That's me stepping out my comfort zone. I've been more so city. Everybody know me. I'm much more city, but yeah, definitely I like to do that. But thank you for your time, Chief Director.
No, thank you, Phil. Thank you so much.